Hey yo, shut your mouth. Game time. The gridiron. Shut your mouth, podcasting. Yards, touchdowns. Shut your mouth, podcasting. First round draft pick. Believe we got stats, kid. Quarterback sacking. 100-yard dashing. So tap in for the action. What teams got traction? What teams are losing? Franchises ruined. Fans in the stand booing. Playing, showing improvement. Who got the nerve to hit the turf? Put in the herd and go to work. Lace their cleats. Put on a show for the box seats. And those in the nosebleeds. Till the other team feels defeat. Decades of dynasties with rings and trophies. Any given Sunday or Monday.
Welcome to the Sim Podcast Show. I'm your co-host Eric, and I'm always joined by my co-host Ron. What up, Ron?
What's going on?
You know what we do? This is season 4, episode number 2. We have been we've been pushing back this episode because, what can I say, life got in the way, but now we know our team's draftees and we can actually discuss what happened. But as usually, we know we're going to have some NFL news, really just one. And then we're going to have our draft reviews, and then we're going to have what the final grades for each team. So, Ron, let's start with the news. And I know not all the teams have leaked the schedule. Some teams are already posting it. At least fans out there posting it. Ron, anything that shocks you out of what you know so far from the Steelers schedule?
Nothing surprising. So we got, according to a leak, and it hasn't been confirmed yet, but it looks like we'll be heading to Atlanta to play the Falcons in what will be Arthur Smith revenge game for opening day. So I think it's 15 out of the last 16 years or something like that. We're starting off on the road. Last year I had broke that trend with a home game, but we're back on the road again. So that doesn't surprise me for the first game. I think were either going to go with that as an option, or, Russell Wilson returning to Denver was probably going to be another option. But it looks like Atlanta will be our first game based on what's leaked. And then the only thing that's leaked so far outside of that is looks like the Steelers are playing the Chiefs on Christmas Day. So we'll be playing on Christmas Day. That's what we played last year on Christmas Day too. I might be wrong about that, but they're playing the Chiefs on Christmas Day.
Yeah, I mean, we knew from like last year early that, we were playing the AFC South and playing the NFC West. We just didn't know how the schedule will come out, and it's been leaking. Like you said, it hasn't been confirmed, but right off the bat, I was disappointed if it does hold up that the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Patriots are going to meet Monday night, but it's going to be all the way in London. I'm really crossing my fingers and hoping that that's not true, because that was a game that we were all going to attend, and now it might not happen at all. So it is what it is. And from everything I've heard about going to see a game in Miami, is that it's not a fun time. Miami can get out of hand, and we've even seen the news, people getting shot up in Miami. So I have no intention of driving all the way down there, but it is what it is. I know that this is I would consider a money grab. What would you consider? Why is the NFL playing in Brazil and playing in Germany and playing in London? What is it?
Money. That's what it comes down to, expanding the audience, right? Tapping into different markets. So we're in Germany, like you said, London, Mexico, now Brazil, I think, right? So it's a money grab. There's fans all over. I'm curious to know, like, when they have these games overseas, is it like local fans that are going, like the majority of local fans? Is it, companies that are buying up these seats, it'd be curious to know like what percentage are fans versus just major companies and organizations taking up these seats. But it's money. That's all it comes down to.
It's money, and it's almost like I know. I mean, I'm just speculating here, but it's almost like a money, like a status, right? Like saying, "Oh, I went to an NFL football game. Granted, I didn't know the rules. Granted, I didn't know the players, all that stuff. But look at me. I went to an NFL game, buddy. I just feel like these people, not to sound elitist, but we're talking about not Europe, but Brazil and Mexico. These are not countries where there's peewee leagues, There's not like, these aren't countries that where young kids are learning how to play the sport. No, it's like, if the roots are not there, why are we doing all this? I'm kind of disappointed. I know that this is definitely a part of the expansion plan or whatever, but this is like, is basically, the real fans, which I call ourselves, are basically being locked out of the game. So I'm not, it's not that I'm mad as hell. I'm just very disappointed that we come to this place that we're trying to globalize a very, very, very American sport. So let's talk about the draft, because the draft happened a couple of weeks ago. We had our picks, and let me just, before we get into the Steelers, let's do the Pats first, because when we did the draft review, I specifically said that these were not my picks. This were Phil Perry's picks, and I knew from day one that we needed a quarterback, and we were eyeing Drake May, and of course he was picked by the Patriots, and then we went to watch this at a bar, and I was just like, I was happy they got Drake May, but I was kind of sad that they got him at the third pick. I just thought that he was a little bit too high for, he's considered a prospect, I guess. But then I wasn't mad about who they picked after. I wasn't mad about, Jalen Polk. I wasn't mad about, Javon Walker. I wasn't mad about even Jahlil Bell, who's a tight end who really didn't light up anybody. But, they got a cornerback from South Carolina, Dial. So you got to get somebody to opposite of Gonzalez. So overall, they made up for the fact that Drake May went third pick. So I was very happy. I was very happy. Granted, I'm still baffled by the whole Joe Milton thing. It's like, why pick him? I know Gerard Mayo went to Tennessee, so maybe he was doing the Tennessee coach's favor. I don't know. The explanation hasn't been there yet. And all Elliot Wolf said was, he has a lot of talent, and we wanted to draft him. So, in your estimation, Ron, does Joe Milton make the team? Because I think they're going to have three quarterbacks, right? They're going to probably carry two and go one to the practice squad. So, is it Joe Milton, or is it going to be Bailey Zappi?
That's a good question, honestly. Like, at first I would think it's Bailey Zappi, but you got to remember this is a whole different regime. They're not the ones who drafted Zappi. But I do think Zappi is more talented than Joe Milton. Joe Milton has potential, right? He has the arm strength. He can run. He has everything that you like, but he hasn't really been able to put it together. He didn't really shine at all. He actually looked pretty terrible in the Senior Bowl. And you just wonder if some of the stuff that you see that's wrong with him, if he'll ever be able to fix it. So I think it's going to be close, though, between him and Milton. I could see it going either way.
Yeah, and the other one, I like Wallace out of Penn State, and I like Robinson out of Texas A&M. They're not the left tackle that they're going to replace. You talk about Trent Brown, who was pretty much close to being an all-pro left tackle. Now, he left for Cincinnati, so it's like we don't really have a left tackle. And I thought that was, the quarterback and the wide receiver and the left tackle, I think that they should have addressed during the draft. And that was the left tackle was the one that they got offensive guards, but they didn't get a left tackle. So, and we'll have our grades at the end of this podcast, but overall, I'm not mad and I'm not ecstatic. I just thought they did a good job. So it is what it is. Ron, what do you think?
Yeah, listen, I think a lot is going to hinge on that first couple of rounds. Whether or not Drake Maye can develop and hit the field at some point this year will determine how much of a success it was. If he doesn't play at all, then that's not, I think many would view that as not, not being good, right? Especially with your third pick. So I think a lot is going to hinge on whether he plays. I think Polk is fine. He's going to be a good receiver. Javon Baker, I think, is a steal. That's someone I think, a lot of people wanted on the Steelers wanted to get him. So he's a good player. And some of the other guys, I think, aren't bad. I think they'll fit in. Most of those guys, I think, will make the team and be able to contribute. But it is going to come down to the offense. That was the major concern last year. That's what has to be fixed this year. The question is Drake Maye the answer? And if he's not, what did you pass up to get him, right? So they passed up a legitimate number one receiver. They passed up, a legitimate offensive tackle that could be a Hall of Famer, for the next 10 years, Pro Bowler for the next 10 years. Those are some guys that you passed on to take your quarterback. Now, you probably would not have been able to come back and get your quarterback, because so many, how many ended up going in the first round? Was
six quarterbacks in the first round.
Yeah.
I think that's
so, unless you were happy with someone like Rattler, getting him later on, in the second or third round, wherever he went, then you had no choice. You were kind of backed into that corner. And I think they probably tried to trade out, honestly, but no one was willing to come up because a lot of these quarterbacks, there wasn't I think a huge difference between May and Bo Nix and Michael Penix. I think a lot of people were just they're all around the same. And we don't know, exactly how, how good they're going to be. But no one was willing to trade all the way up to 3, I think, to get any of those guys.
Yeah, I think they got some offers from the Vikings and they got some offer from the Giants. And when they turned down those offers, I would have thought that maybe Arizona would have been okay with those offers, or even the Titans, because those are two teams that basically have a quarterback. So they could have easily traded out with the Giants or the Vikings, but I think that the Vikings wanted a quarterback, especially Drake Maye, so bad that they didn't make a deal, hard enough with the other teams that were in the 4th pick or had the 5th pick. So I don't know. It's everything's coming out because, let's be honest, Ron, this is kind of the season where you make up stuff because there's no on-field, there's no on-field play. So anybody is good, right? Anybody is, oh no, he's going to be great. Why even draft him? So I take it with a grain of salt every time I see all those stories coming out. No, the Giants offered all these picks, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, you know what? The organization can embellish, the agents can embellish, even the players can embellish. This is because they're not, they're not going to be playing a real real game until late August, September. So I feel like anything goes during the season.
Yeah. You got all summer to spin it however you want.
Yes.
You know, want it. And a lot of teams did that, right? They said, hey, this is the guy I wanted from day one. I wanted J.J. McCarthy, right? I wanted Bo Nix. I wanted Michael Penix. You know, whether or not you believe them, you know, it's a different story. I think at Atlanta's where I think Penix ended up, right? When, you know, even though they had Kirk Cousins, they probably really wanted him, right? They wouldn't have made that choice if they didn't really want him. They could have went in a number of different directions. But the other teams like Denver, you know, Minnesota, the Patriots, whether or not they really wanted the guys they ended up with, no one knows besides, you know, the coaches, the owners, the GM. No one's going to know that.
Yeah, and they asked Robert Kraft, and this is sometimes I get upset with Robert Kraft because he likes to defer questions. He likes to defer to like, oh, I'm just a fan. I'm not involved in the process. I'm just a fan. So I'm like, really, dude, you own the team. You're not just a fan. You're the owner. You're the one. Your name is on the checks. You say go. Well, he just loves to defer questions. So I don't know. Maybe he was in there with his son, Jonathan Kraft was in there like, hey, we need a QB. This Mac Jones thing is not going to work out. We need a QB. So, listen, I'm happy they got Drake May, but like we said earlier, he's going to be a project. They're talking about maybe like October, early November, he might start a game, but we don't know. We don't know if they're really going to be bad by that time or they're going to be good in the hunt. We don't know. So, I want to see how the coaching staff, how Gerard Mayo handles the whole progress, the whole development. Does he know the system and all that? I'm gonna resist the urge to say Drake May is the savior. I want to see it first, but I have to tell you, Ron, I did pre-order my Drake May jersey. Not jersey, sorry. My Drake May T-shirt. Let's settle down.
Okay,
I don't want to make the mistake and get a jersey. Yeah. I'm gonna start with a T-shirt and then go from there. So, all right. So that's what I have to say about the Patriots. Let's go on to the Steelers. Ron, who did they draft? The Steelers did.
Yeah, I mean it was pretty much chalk. Some of the positions for sure were exactly what I expected. Players were different. So I thought they needed to address the tackle situation. I had them doing that in the fourth round. I didn't think someone would fall to them, but that's exactly what happened in the first round. And they were able to get Troy Fautano from Washington, the tackle. So he, according to the folks that were there for rookie practice, he was already moved over to the right side practice. So it looks like Roderick Jones, who we drafted last year, will be able to switch to his natural spot on the left side. So that's great. We got Zach Frazier. We didn't have a center at all. So that was a must. We had to come out of the draft with one. To sit and wait to the second round and get one. So definitely happy they were able to pull that off. Roman Wilson's a good receiver. We'll see if he can fit into that receiver too. He's more of a slot weapon. Peyton Wilson is a huge steal for, I think, one of the best inside linebackers in this draft. Just had a number of injuries. Some depth at guard position with McCormick, defensive line with Logan Lee, and then Ryan Watts, the cornerback. Chalk, I think, is the best way of playing the draft for the Steelers.
Yeah, I mean, they got a center, they got a wide out, and you said you needed a linebacker, right? So
we did, right? So a linebacker, I thought we could use one. I think I had them in my mock taking someone late, like with that last 6th round pick, but we ended up addressing Peyton Wilson fell all the way to the fourth round, and a lot of people tell you he was the best linebacker in the draft. He just had a whole bunch of injuries. He plays without an ACL, I think, in his right leg. He's had ACL injury in his left, multiple shoulder injuries. So there's a lot of concerns there for sure. But the fact that we got him, the best linebacker, probably a first round pick, if he didn't have those injuries or we were able to get him in the fourth, I think that addresses a need I didn't think we'd be able to address. But it certainly fills a hole that we had on the team.
And I'm not. Sometimes when you have a college player that has an injury, and you're not going to get the same medical staff from the college to the pros, you're going to get some special people. So, because the same thing happened with Gronk when he was coming out of Colorado. They were like, "Oh, he just had back surgery. This guy is not 100%." Well, look what happened. He became a Hall of Famer tight end. Why? Because he got a different medical staff. So I'm not too concerned, with the whole oh, he got hurt. Yes, I understand people get hurt all the time, but what you get, the medical attention that you get at college is definitely different from the professionals. So yeah. I think ultimately Wilson will be a steal.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I can see why people are a little concerned because, looking back at last year, we lost 3 linebackers, right? One of them trying to make his way back. He might not even be able to make it at the start of the season. So knowing what happened to us last year, knowing we needed another, starting caliber linebacker, but then, you get somebody with an injury history, that's concerning. But that, I think, is the risk-reward situation, right? If he goes out and he stays fully healthy, the upside is huge. If he goes out and gets hurt, well, then you're back to square one, right? So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. I think, with the draft, I'm happy, and we'll get to grades in a minute, but the biggest holes that we had, they were filled for the most part. So I think the only position that we didn't really get somebody that I thought we needed to get was a slot cornerback specifically. And we got Watts with the in the 6th round, but he's not going to be able to play slot corner. So that's the only hole, I think. That and, can Roman Wilson develop into a number 2 receiver? Those are probably the areas that did not get addressed in the draft.
So
we'll see.
You're not concerned about the running back situation?
No, Najee not having his option picked up. I think, he deserves to have his option picked up. I think there's still a good chance that he gets an extension at the end of the season. I think there's a good chance this will be his best year. And, they can make a decision, do you want him? Is he your guy? I think he is. The guy's never missed a game, and we've never had a running back in Steelers history that's had 1,000-yard 3 straight seasons in a row. So
you think that this was intentional? You think this was intentional? Like they intentionally not. Basically, they made it seem like he's going to be a free agent, so he can, just play better overall? Because now he's playing for a contract, right?
I don't think it was intentional. I think, it's intentional, but not intentional in the sense that, you got to come out here and earn it. I think Najee has done everything in the last 3 years. To me, he has nothing to prove. I just think the running back market itself is so low. And rather than, if you put your business hat on, right, guaranteeing someone 1 year this year, right, rather than picking it up and guaranteeing him $8-9 million, whatever it was, why not have him finish out his rookie contract and then still work on an extension and pay him next year. There was really no incentive other than at the end of the season, if you don't work something out, Najee can say, you know what, I'm leaving, I'm out, right? But when you get to the end of the year, if you really want him, then you'll pay him what you think he's worth. So, it's a business decision. Every position today, except for maybe quarterback, most of these positions are year to year. You don't see a lot of 2, 3, 4-year deals anymore. A lot of these players on a year to year, especially the running back position, you're year to year. You can have a good year one year, have a bad year the next year, and be out the door after that. So, that's just the state of the running back market, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that. I just think if you really like Najee Harris on your team, why not just pay him? I'm sure. I mean, I don't know. We haven't heard Najee, or at least I haven't seen anything where he says, I want to be a Steeler. I liked being a Steeler. Like, he's been very quiet on this. I think his agent was like, just do your thing and the money will come. I wanted him to be more aggressive, basically. Especially, as you mentioned, this guy has gone back-to-back 1,000 yards. I think he's gone back-to-back 1,000 yards. So
3 seasons in a row.
Yeah, so why even...
And missed no game. Haven't missed a game at all.
Yeah, so he's played hurt. I know there's some nagging injuries that he's had. So why not just pay him the market? He's reliable. And we know that he can play if guys have good offensive line. So, I don't know. I think that was, would you consider him a top 10 running back?
I would. Yeah. I think he is.
It's definitely
now
he's
right? Different. Yeah, so he's an AFC type of runner. That's a good way of putting it, right? So AFC North especially, that's the running back he is. He's not a McCaffrey. He's not, someone that's explosive, that's going to take it the distance at any time. That's not who he is. But in a long AFC North, like harsh weather, type of team, that's what you need. He's the perfect fit. And I think something will work out. I hold on hope that they'll get an extension before the season even starts, because they can do that. And if that doesn't happen, I hope they can get an extension and he comes back, and signs with the Steelers. But we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Okay, Ron. So overall, Ron, what is your grade for the 2024 draft?
It's an A. Even when we had the draft first, I thought, honestly, this is probably the best draft I think the Steelers have ever had, ever. I've come down a little bit on that, but I think this was a great draft, and I think 2 years in a row now, Omar Khan has just been perfect with his execution. When it's time to move up, he's moved up. When it's time to sit still, he stays still. When you can trade back and get more picks, he's always seems to do the right things. And he's always, like the last 3 years, he's drafted, I think, good players. So, we needed a tackle. We got one of the top 3 tackles. We needed a center. He got a top 3 center. We need a good receiver. A lot of people have said, Roman Wilson. He's not your prototypical 6'3", 6'2" receiver, but he's a sharp runner router. He's explosive. He runs like a 4.3, 40. So he's going to be able to contribute. So I thought this was an excellent draft. I have it rated as a A. A lot of NFL analysts, had the Steelers as one of the top teams as far as the draft grades.
Yeah, I'm going to go with a solid B, only because, listen, we've had Bill Belichick doing the draft for the last 24 years, and he's been hit or miss, more miss than hits. And I think that Elliott Wolf and his team kind of said, we need offense. We're going to take offensive players. And that's what they did. So, if you look at it from afar, it was a great draft. But if you drill down, if you drill down on the players, some of them are not going to be ready right away. Some of them, as we mentioned, Drake May, he's going to need some time to develop, right? So the fact that he was drafted 3 overall, you want him to start right away, but that's not the case. And everything that's come out from the journalists and from the coach Mayo was like, hey, he has a lot of work to do. Whether it's his feet or whether it's, throwing over the middle, he has a lot of work to do. So I'm not going to give them an A, but I'm also not going to give them below a C because they filled most of their needs. Except for left tackle, they basically filled their needs. And I know that these players obviously are not going to be Hall of Fame players, but I think that they're going to play at some point. And, I like it. They made up for drafting all the other players the rest of the draft. If they just drafted Drake May and just focus on, we need to get better cornerback, or we need to get better our safety, we need, focus on the defense, I would have been very disappointed because Drake May alone can't do it by himself. But the fact that they got all these wide receivers and the fact that they got the tight end, I'm still head scratching over Joe Milton's thing. But I think overall B minus. I'm not head over heels, but at the same time, they did what they were supposed to do. They knew the assignment and they did it. So I'm not mad. I'm not mad. If I was a teacher, I'd be like, at least you tried, and I like the effort. It doesn't mean that you hit it at the ballpark, but I like the effort. So I'm gonna give them a solid B. That's where I stand.
Yeah, I think that's fair. It's an improvement regardless, right?
Yeah,
so I think it's an improvement in how they draft the last, X number of years for sure.
Yeah, I think so too. Anything that you want to say, the Steelers? I don't know. The next time we do a show, Ron, I think that it's going to be on YouTube, and it's when we do our roster review. So, we're May now. We're talking about early August. So we have a good 2 months before we actually do a show. So what do you want to tell the Steelers fan out there?
Hey, listen, we still got a long off season to go. It'll be a little bit boring until we get, into camp, mandatory camp and stuff like that. But listen, the roster is, it is what it is. I think we have a pretty decent roster. There's a chance that, Steelers could be a pretty decent team. We could see some improvement. Let's see how the summer goes. Let's see how camp goes. I'm kind of excited, cautiously optimistic about how things will turn out this year.
Yeah, I think the over and under right now, it's at 5.5. I think that they should go over. So I'm gonna be optimistic, not to the point where they can make the playoffs, but listen, the first 4 plays, Aaron Rodgers was out. So injuries can happen. Anything can happen. Listen, this is the next 2 weeks, the next 2 months, we got to fill it up with, I know, Ron, you already, did you get the WNBA pack? That's what I want to know. Did you get the league pass?
I did not. I caved a little bit, but I did watch Caitlin Clark, her first half. He was not good. Got to watch her play. Sold out audience for her first regular season game. So excited for the WNBA. They got my attention more than the Bruins, who I don't know if they lost today or if they won, where they were facing elimination. I flipped to the WNBA instead. So
I know they were winning in the second intermission 2-1. We started recording, so I didn't watch. So we got 2 months of Phil. Both of us turned it back to the Red Sox because they're terrible. As I told you guys earlier, I made the mistake of watching a highlight, and it just made me more matter about the situation. So I was like, no, I'm gonna keep boycotting them. But I will watch our beloved Celtics. So yeah, that's gonna be, that's gonna fill my time during the next 2 months until we start the show. So that
yeah.
Let's hope that they don't get bounced out of the playoffs and then make it all the way through, because as much as I enjoy women's leagues, I'm not putting money into the WNBA. Listen, I already support
that.
Technically, I already support 5 women in my life. I don't need to support anymore. I'm good. Ron, listen, I will talk to you again in another show. And if you, I want to say this: if you like basketball, you can hear myself and Ron on Chasing C Notes, the podcast, strictly about the NBA and the Boston Celtics. But if you just, I'm not gonna be mad if you just want to listen to football, because we also have this podcast. So we're definitely sports fanatics. So listen, it is just the way it is. I'm sorry, I don't know what to tell you. Be mad at us, but be sympathetic to our wives, because as soon as I said, I got a podcast to do, it was like roll eye city. So so with that say, Ron, I'm gonna end it there. Let's go back. I'm gonna go back to watching the Knicks. I hope that game is still going on, and you're gonna go back to Caitlin Clark. Great. There we have it.
Yep.
So in that case, I say peace.
Peace.
Thanks again for listening. Please send your questions and or suggestions to Shut Your Mouth Podcast. That's shutYMPodcast@gmail.com. You can always reach us via Twitter at Shut Your Mouth Podcast, or DM us at the gram at Shut Your Mouth Podcast. Again, SHUTYM Podcast. Until next time, see ya.
Peace.